Clay swept the bones of dinner into the river with his tail. The striped white shapes bounced away in the current. Fires flickered around the edges of the great central cave. Echoing space yawned overhead, dripping with stalactites, like huge teeth. The cave dome was big enough for 6 full-grown dragons to fit across with their wings extended. The underground river flowed along one wall, muttering and gurgling, as if it were plotting its own escape. Clay glanced at 2 small sleeping caves that opened into the hall, currently empty, and wondered where the other dragonets had gone while he was cleaning up.
Aha!
Clay threw his wings over his head.
What'd I do? I'm sorry. It was an accident. Or if it's the extra cow, Dune said I could have it because Webbs would be out till late, but I'm sorry, and I can skip dinner tomorrow.
A small snout poked his back between his wings.
Calm down, silly.
Sunny said.
I wasn't ahawing at you.
Oh.
Clay smoothed his crest and twisted around to look at her. The smallest and last hatch of the dragonets. A pale lizard tail was disappearing into her mouth. She grinned at him.
That was my fierce hunting cry. Did you like it? Wasn't it scary?
Well, it was certainly surprising. Lizards again? What's wrong with cows?
Bleh, too heavy. You all look serious.
Just thinking.
He was glad Kestrel and Dune couldn't read minds like the Nightwing dragons. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about the idea of escape all through dinner. Clay lifted one of his wings, and Sunny nestled in close to him. He could feel the warmth of her golden scales radiating along his side. Sunny was too small, and the wrong color. Tawny gold instead of a sand pale, like most sandwings. But she gave off heat, like the rest of her tribe.
Dune says we should go study for an hour before bed. The others are in the study cave already.
Dune, the maimed dragon who taught them survival skills, was a sandwing. And so was Sunny, more or less. There was something not quite right about the littlest dragonet. Not only were her scales too golden, but her eyes were gray-green instead of glittering black. Worst of all, her tail curled into an ordinary point like the tails of most dragon tribes, instead of ending with a poisonous barb that was the sandwing's most dangerous weapon. As Kestrel often said, Sunny was completely harmless. And what good was a harmless dragon? But her egg fit the instructions in the prophecy, so she was their wings of sand, whether the talons of peace liked it or not. Of course, there was no wings of rain in the prophecy at all. The dragonets had all heard many times over about how glory was a last-minute substitute for the broken skywing egg. Kestrel and Dune called her a mistake, and growled at her a lot. Nobody knew whether the prophecy could still happen with a rainwing instead of a skywing. But from what Clay knew of skywings, he was very glad they had glory instead of another grumpy, fire-breathing Kestrel under their mountain.
Come on.
He followed her across the central cave. Twisting stone tunnels led off in 4 directions, one to the battle area, one to the Guardian's cave, one to the study room, and one to the outside world. The last was blocked with a boulder too big for any of the dragonets to move. Clay stopped and pushed against the rock with his shoulder as they went by. He often tried to open it when the big dragons weren't around. Someday it would move when he did that. Maybe not a lot, but even a tiny shift would let him know that he was finally getting close to full grown. He felt big. He was constantly bumping into things and accidentally knocking stuff over with his tail or wings.
Not today,
he thought, ruefully when the boulder didn't budge.
Maybe tomorrow.
He followed Sunny down the tunnel to the study room. His enormous feet and thick claws thumped and scraped along the stone floor. Even though he'd lived under the mountain his whole life, it still hurt to walk on bare rock. He was constantly stubbing his talons, and they always ached by the end of the day. Tsunami was strutting around the study cave, barking orders. Sunny and Clay sat down by the entrance, folding their wings back. A breath of air drifted down from the hole in the roof. Far overhead, the only window to the outside in any of the caves, at night, without a distant hint of sunlight, the room felt colder and more hollow. Clay stretched up and sniffed at the darkness that had fallen on the other side of the hole. He thought it smelled like stars. A map of Pyria hung on the wall between the torches. Tsunami and Starflight loved staring at the map, trying to figure out where their hidden cave was. Starflight was pretty sure they were somewhere under the claws of clouds and mountains. Skywings preferred to live high among the peaks, so anything could happen in the deep caves below without being noticed.
All this history is so confusing.
Sunny murmured to Clay, switching her tail back and forth.
Why don't the 3 sides just sit down and talk out the end to the war?
That would be great. Then we could stop studying it.
Stop that! No whispering! Pay attention. I'm assigning parts.
This is not proper studying.
His black nightwing scales made him nearly invisible in the dark shadows between the torches. He swept a few scrolls between his talons and began to neatly sort them into stacked triangles.
Perhaps I should read to everyone instead.
Dear moons, anything but that.
Glory said from the ledge above him.
Maybe later, when we're trying to fall asleep.
Her long, delicate snout, glowing emerald green with displeasure, rested on her front claws. Ripples of iridescent blue shimmered across her scales, and tonight her tail was a swirl of vibrant purples. If it weren't for Glory, Clay thought, none of them would know how many colors there were in the world. He wondered what it must be like in the rainforest, where there was a whole tribe of dragons that beautiful.
Shush! Now, obviously, I'd be the best queen, but let's make Sunny the queen, since she's a real sandwing.
Well, sort of.
Starflight flicked her with his tail. None of the Dragonettes ever talked about why Sunny didn't look like a regular sandwing. Clay's guess was that her egg had been taken from the sand too early. Maybe sandwing eggs needed the sun and desert sand to keep them warm until hatching, or else they'd come out half-baked and funny-looking. Although personally, he thought Sunny looked just fine. Tsunami tapped her talons on the cave floor, studying her friends.
Clay, you want to play the scavenger?
That's hardly fair. He's twice Sunny's size. A real scavenger would be smaller than her. According to the scroll over here, it says that scavengers have no scales, no wings, and no tails. And they walk on 2 legs, which sounds unstable to me. I bet they fall over all the time. They like treasure nearly as much as dragons do. The scroll says scavengers attack lone dragons and steal.
Oh my gosh, we know! We were all here for the fascinating lectures about them. Don't make me come down there and bite you, Starflight.
I'd like to meet a real scavenger. I'd rip off its head and eat it. I bet it would taste better than the mouthfuls of feathers Kestrel keeps bringing us.
Poor hungry Clay.
Ha! When we're free, we'll go find a scavenger nest and eat all of them.
When we're free?
Oops.
Tsunami and Clay exchanged glances. Sunny was sweet and trusting and absolutely terrible at keeping secrets.
I mean, after we fulfill the prophecy, of course. Clay, be the scavenger. Here, this can be a claw.
She swung her long tail in an arc and smashed a stalagmite loose. Shards of rock flew across the cave, and the other dragonettes ducked. Clay hefted the sharp rock spear in his claws and grinned wickedly at Sunny.
Don't actually hurt me.
Of course he won't. We're just acting it out. And the rest of us will be the princesses. I'll be Burn, Glory can be Blister, and Starflight will be Blaze.
I had to be a princess last time, too. I'm not sure I like this game.
He stretched his wings, and the scattered silver scales underneath glittered like stars in the night sky.
It's not a game, it's history. And if we had any other friends, we could play it differently. But there are 3 sand dragon princesses, so you have to be one. So stop complaining.
Starflight shrugged and settled back into the shadows, the way he always did when he couldn't win a fight.
All right, go ahead.
Tsunami said, hopping onto the ledge next to Glory.
Right. Here I go. La la la, Queen Oasis of the Sandwings. I'm so very important and, royal and stuff.
Tsunami sighed. Glory and Starflight hid their smiles.
I've been queen for ages and ages. No one dares challenge me for my throne. I am the strongest Sandwing queen who have ever lived.
Don't forget the treasure.
Tsunami hissed, pointing at a pile of loose rocks.
Oh, right. It's probably because of all my treasure. I have so much treasure because I am such an important queen.
She swept the rocks toward her and gathered them between her talons.
Did someone say treasure?
Clay bellowed, leaping out from behind a large rock formation.
Rah! What is this tiny scavenger doing in the kingdom of sand? I am not afraid of tiny scavengers. I shall go out there and eat him in one bite.
Glory started giggling so hard she had to lie down and cover her face with her wings. Even Tsunami was making faces like she was trying not to laugh. Clay swung his stalagmite in a circle.
Squeak, 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 and other annoying scavenger noises. I'm here to steal treasure away from a magnificent dragon.
Not from me, you won't.
She stamped forward, spread her wings, and raised her tail threateningly. Without the poisonous barb other sandwings had, Sunny's tail was not very menacing, but nobody pointed that out.
Yeah!
Lunging forward with his rock claw, Sunny darted out of the way, and they circled each other, feinting and jabbing. This was Clay's favorite part, when Sunny forgot about trying to act queenly and focused on the battle. She was fun to fight. Her small size made it easy for her to dodge and slip under his defenses, but in the end, Queen Oasis had to lose. That was how the story went. Clay drove Sunny back against the wall of the cave and thrust a fake claw between her neck and her wing, pretending it went right through her heart.
Ow! Impossible! A queen defeated by a lowly scavenger! The kingdom will fall apart! Oh, my treasure, my lovely treasure!
She collapsed to the ground and let her wings flop lifelessly on either side of her.
Ha ha ha! And squeak, squeak! The treasure is mine!
He scooped up all the rocks and paraded away, lashing his tail proudly.
Our turn.
She hurried over to Sunny, clasped her talons together, and let out a cry of anguish.
Oh no! Our mother is dead and the treasure is gone. But worst of all, none of us killed her. So who should be queen now?
I was about to challenge her.
She flapped her wings dramatically.
I would have fought her to the death for the throne. I should be queen.
No, I should be queen. I am the eldest and biggest and would have challenged her first.
They both turned to look at Starflight. Hidden in the shadows, the black dragon looked as if he was trying to become even more invisible.
Come on, Starflight. Don't be a lazy...
She caught herself just before saying Rainwing. The teacher said things like that all the time. If you don't study, you're no better than a Rainwing. What's the matter? Someone replace your brains with a Rainwings? Still sleeping? Anyone would think you were a Rainwing. That last one was mostly for Clay. But the Dragonets all knew Glory hated it. No matter how much she pretended she didn't care. It also seemed really unfair. Glory was the only Rainwing any of them had ever met. And she studied and trained harder than anyone else.
Dragon. Starflight, get out here.
The Nightwing shuffled forward and looked down at Sunny, who had her eyes scrunched shut.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well now, I should be queen. As the youngest princess, I could have the longest reign. That would be good for Sandwings. Also...
She paused and gave out a long, suffering sigh.
Also, I am by far the prettiest.
Sunny giggled and Tsunami poked her to keep still. Clay swept his treasure rocks into a pile and sat on them.
I should kill you both right now.
Ha! You and what army?
Glory stretched her neck and bared her teeth.
That's a great idea. I'll go get an army of sea wings, and then you'll be sorry.
You're not the only one who can make alliances. I'll get the Skywings on my side and the Mudwings. Then we'll see who wins this war.
There was a pause and both looked at Starflight again.
Yeah, you do that. And I'll ally myself with the Icewings army. Also, by the way, most of the Sandwings want me to be their queen.
They do?
Sunny said, opening her eyes.
Who says?
Stop talking. You're dead.
There are lots of recent scrolls about it. Blaze is very popular with her own tribe.
So why can't she be queen, if that's who they want?
Because Burn is bigger and scarier and could crush her like a bug if they actually fought claw to claw. And Blister, that's me, is smarter than the both of them put together. She knew she couldn't kill Burn in a regular duel. It was her idea to involve all the other tribes and turn their Sandwing throne battle into a world war. She's probably waiting for the other two to kill each other.
Which one do we want to be queen? We get to pick, right? When we fulfill the prophecy?
None of them. Blaze is about as smart as a concussed sheep. Blister is most likely plotting to become queen of all of the tribes somehow. And if Burn wins, she'll probably keep the war going just for fun. They're all pretty nasty. I guess we'll see what the Talons of Peace decide.
The Talons of Peace don't get to decide. They only think they're in charge of us.
We can still hear them out. They want what's best for us and Pyria.
Easy for you to say. You weren't stolen from your home. The Nightwings were pretty eager to hand over your egg, weren't they?
Boring!
Clay shouted from his pile of rocks.
Stop fighting with each other. Come fight me for this treasure instead.
Clay stamped his feet.
I just want to fight somebody.
Somebody who wasn't trying to beat him into a violent rage, preferably. As if the thought had summoned her, Kestrel suddenly loomed in the entrance of the cave.
What is going on in here?
Kestrel's booming voice made all 5 Dragonets jump to attention. Sunny slipped as she tried to scramble to her feet, and Starflight jumped forward to catch her. The enormous red skywing slithered into the cave, glaring down at them.
This doesn't look like studying.
We're sorry.
No, we're not.
Tsunami shot the sandwing a glare.
We were studying. We were acting out the death of the queen that started the whole war.
You mean play acting. You're too old for games.
When were we ever young enough for games?
It wasn't a game. It was a different way of learning history. What's wrong with that?
And now you're talking back.
She looked smug, as she always did when Tsunami got in trouble.
That means no sleeping in the river tonight.
Kestrel tapped the pile of scrolls by the entrance with one claw.
The rest of you, learn from the Sea Wing's mistakes and study the correct way.
That's not fair.
Clay spoke up as Kestrel turned to go, even though it made his heart pound.
We were all doing the same thing. We should all be punished.
I know who the ringleader was. Cut off the head and the problem goes away.
You're gonna cut off Tsunami's head?
It's a metaphor, Featherbrain.
Now go to bed.
She turned and swept out of the cave, knocking over Starflight's neat stack of scrolls as she went. Clay nudged Tsunami's dark blue shoulder with his snout.
Sorry. We tried.
I know. Thanks. Hey, Sunny, would you mind taking those scrolls back to our sleeping cave?
The small gold dragon brightened. She hurried to the entrance, gathered the scattered scrolls in her front talons, and whisked out of the cave.
I can't stand this much longer. We have to get out of here, and soon.
Clay glanced at Glory and Starflight, who didn't look surprised.
You talked to them about it?
Of course. I needed their help figuring out an escape plan.
Clay couldn't help but notice that she hadn't asked him for any escape plan ideas. Even the dragons who liked him thought he was pretty useless.
I'm not sure we're ready. There's so much we haven't learned yet.
That's what the teachers want us to think, but we'll never know until we get out of these horrible caves and see the world for ourselves.
What about the prophecy? Shouldn't we wait 2 more years?
I don't see why. I'm with Tsunami. Destiny is destiny, right? So whatever we do must be the right thing. We don't need a bunch of ancient dragons telling us how to save the world. They're not in the prophecy.
When do we tell Sunny?
Not until the last minute. You know she can't keep a secret. Starflight, promise you won't say anything to her.
I won't. She's not going to like it, though. She thinks everything is great here.
Of course she does. She doesn't care that we get treated like cracked eggs, even though we're supposed to be the key to peace, or whatever.
She cares. She just doesn't whine about it.
Ouch.
Tsunami whirled a glare at Starflight, her gills pulsing.
Say that to my face.
I am saying it to your face. Or was I saying it to your rear end? It's easy to get those two confused.
He ducked behind Clay before Tsunami could even bare her teeth at him.
Hey, stop! Quit snarling at each other like mini kestrels.
Clay said, standing up to keep his bulk between Tsunami and Starflight.
Nobody's happy here. Sunny deals with it differently, that's all. But remember what we decided. We 5 stick together, or else everything gets worse, right?
Starflight hunched his wings forward, muttering.
Clay's right. The last thing we want is to be like Kestrel or Webbs or Dune.
Tsunami hissed for a moment, then shook herself.
Alright, I know. I'm trying, but this place is slowly killing me. As soon as we have a plan, we go. Let's see them force our destiny on us when they can't even find us anymore.